Hi, my name's Michael, and today I want to talk about Death and the Penguin by Andrey Kurkov, and this was written in 1996, which is just after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and it was translated by George Bird. Andrey Kurkov is a Ukrainian author, and Death and the Penguin was written in Russian. It deals a lot with post-Soviet Ukraine and the problems that have come from that situation. The book tells the story of an unemployed, inspiring writer whose name is Viktor Alexandrovich Volontayov, and he's struggling to survive in this post-Soviet society. He has aspirations to be a novelist, but he has not been successful in this dream job. But he gets a job writing obituaries, and this job falls into his lap as a bit of a surprise. He's asked to write these obituaries for the notable Ukrainian figures, politicians, socialites, and all that. He starts off doing this job, but he quickly discovers that the obituaries he's writing, these people start ending up dead, and he finds out that the newspaper is just a front, and he's trapped in a situation where he cannot escape. The title of the book, Death and the Penguin, refers to Victor's job writing obituaries and his pet king penguin, Misha. In the book, the Kiev Zoo had run out of money and they weren't able to afford to support the animals. So their solution was to give the pets to citizens that will be able to feed them, and Victor is given this pet king penguin to look after. Interestingly enough, Andrey Kurkov uses Misha the pet penguin to mirror Victor's life, and it kind of ends up as an existential type situation where life is imitating art, and we've got this whole balance of life and death that plays out throughout this book. Andrey Kurkov tries to portray this Ukrainian situation where Kiev is driven by greed and corruption. It's a type of place where you have to bribe someone to even get an ambulance out to take a dying man to the hospital. But even then, when the man gets to the hospital, they don't have any medicine to ease the pain, let alone a cure to help. So we have this whole contrast where politicians and people with money are controlling Kiev and the Ukraine, but you also have the underground world where gangsters have come up with a solution to corruption, and that is by assassinating all these socialites and politicians, and they're using the already written obituaries as a way to get rid of those people. So we have this balance between money, corruption, no real good and evil. It's just a struggle between life and death. Death and the Penguin is a dark tragic comedy, but it's also a political satire which really deals with this bleak post-Soviet Ukraine, and as a reader you get to experience as Victor's exploration into morality and mortality. I really love the way that Kurkov has done this within the book, starting with Victor finally getting money and a job writing as a way to develop his writing styles, but then he's met with this ethical dilemma about his writing causing death. And is it helping solve corruption, or is it just creating more problems? And even Victor in the book writes a line, he's saying, people got used to corruption. People here are flexible and they accept the new rules and don't dwell on the moral question. They just watch what everyone else is doing and try to find their own ways of deceiving others to making money for themselves to survive. That's pretty much how Kurkov is portraying post-Soviet Ukraine in the book, and it's a really interesting thing because morality is not a big issue. People care more about making money, but when it's hitting so close to home where Victor makes money that causes death, then he's forced to question that idea of morality and if what he's actually doing is helping Ukraine rather than just helping himself. I mentioned before that Victor and Misha's lives run in parallel, and this is a really interesting part of the book. At the start of the book where Victor is trapped and struggling to survive, Misha's in a zoo that have run out of money and they cannot feed them, so they're struggling as well. Then Victor finally gets this job and Misha gets placed with Victor to be able to feed him. And it runs throughout the whole story, this contrast between what's happening in Victor's lives and what's happening in the Penguin's life. Like at the end where he's feeling trapped in this situation, we're also dealing with the Penguin's situation of living in an environment which is not suitable for a king penguin, and we're looking at being trapped in a situation and how an animal feels about being taken out of their own natural environment and put into a situation where they're trapped and caged. And this is a bit of a backbone of a story, but it goes a little deeper than that. This show kind of works as a contrast between life and death. We have the obituaries and the death, and we have Victor writing about death, but we'll also have him struggling to keep the penguin alive when it gets sick and try to care for it and make sure the penguin gets all the care it needs to survive. And we've got this whole contrast that runs through the book where we have life and death becoming the big themes of the book, and I really enjoyed the way Kurkov did this, and it really works for me. For me, I found this a really great book. I love how it blends in a little bit of surreal and existentialism into these dark comedy satire elements, and I really like the way Andrey Kurkov explored the themes of life and death and corruption and morality throughout the whole book. This is actually the first book in a two-part series. I believe the next book is called Penguin Lost, which is a play on the epic poem Paradise Lost, which is also where I got my Twitter handle Knowledge Lost. I played on the epic poem, and it was more on a play on my lack of education and wanting to find that education, but that's a little off topic. But I thought a post-Soviet novel would really work well with this Russian lit project that I'm doing, and I wanted to look at what the situation was like in Ukraine, and this seemed like the perfect book. So Death and Penguin, definitely a book that I would recommend if you like dark comedies, surrealism, and political satire all mixed in one. It's well worth checking out. For me, I really liked that whole situation, and I was fascinated by the themes. So that's it for me. That was Death and the Penguin by Andrey Kurkov, written in 1996, translated by George Bird. And I know it's not going to be for everyone, but if you're into that type of book, I highly recommend picking up this one. And I'd love to talk to anyone that's read it or planning to read it, and even talk more about satire and Russian literature. The next Russian book I'm hoping to review on this channel will probably be Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, and there's a lot to go through in that book. It's 800 pages, so hopefully I'll be able to chop it down to a nice sized video to talk about that book. You can find me on social media, and all my links are below. Thank you for watching.